It's the perfect time to replace that beast in your basement, your old inefficient boiler, with a highly efficient Peerless boiler. Peerless boilers, they're a perfect match for homes, apartments, commercial buildings, you name it. Get the heat and hot water you need efficiently and save big on your energy bill all year long. Learn more about the entire Peerless Boilers family of products, and to find a local installer near you, visit peerlessboilers.com. And remember, my guy Pete Morgan, Peerless Boilers, the world's best built boilers, peerlessboilers.com.
Listen, all you New Yorkers.
Excuse me. Taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
You are now entering the Stone Zone, and I'm your host, Roger Stone. Well, former President Barack Hussein Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama have jumped into the Minnesota fray by issuing a joint statement Sunday condemning U.S. Border Patrol after an Antifa-affiliated activist was killed while allegedly reaching for his gun during an encounter with ICE officials, calling the incident a heartbreaking tragedy and accusing federal agents of acting with impunity. The statement was obviously written by the former divider-in-chief to distort the facts, undermine law enforcement, and recklessly inflame public tensions. The Obamas allege that federal immigration enforcement in Minnesota has become lawless and cruel, blaming so-called unprecedented tactics for the deaths of Alex Pretty and Renee Good. Barack Obama seems to forget that he holds the record for the largest number of illegals deported from the country, some 2.6 million illegals deported during his time as president. Of course, there were no violent protests over any of that. The former first couple has also expressed support for protests in Minneapolis, even as demonstrations have repeatedly turned more violent, resulting in property damage, assaults on officers, and widespread public disorder. It was revealed on Saturday by sources such as undercover reporter James O'Keefe with O'Keefe Media that communist cells are working with military precision, taking over streets and implementing mob rule through terror and coercion. Let's be very clear. These are not spontaneous or indigenous peaceful protests. This is a paramilitary type operation that is very carefully planned and obviously fully funded and staffed. More recently, Cam Higbee, a citizen journalist, has uncovered not one but two signal chats that involve the lieutenant governor of Minnesota as well as Governor Tim Walz's chief political operative and campaign manager in orchestrating the attacks on ICE agents. The Obamas, of course, realize all of this. It's no coincidence that Black Lives Matter riots initially started while Obama was in office, after the thug Trayvon Martin was killed while attacking a concerned citizen. Obama fanned those flames and let his surrogates do the dirty work. Now he's back at it again. The founder of ISIS, Barack Hussein Obama, hoping to finish off the country he infiltrated. And I honestly believe he hates with every fiber of his Marxist, Islamist, third world gutter trash being. Meanwhile, Governor Tim Walz has once again used his bully pulpit to worsen the situation happening under his watch, and yet again prove himself to be an absolute buffoon after invoking Nazi-era comparisons to attack federal immigration enforcement officers, suggesting that ICE operations in his state will someday be written about like the Diary of Anne Frank. Speaking at a press conference, Walz claimed that children in Minnesota are hiding in their houses afraid to go outside, and implied that President Donald Trump bears responsibility. Walz claimed that somebody is going to write that story about Minnesota, explicitly likening ICE informant officers to persecution under the Nazi regime. This is not the first time Walz has used such overheated rhetoric. Last year, he referred to ICE agents as the modern-day Gestapo, a remark widely condemned as dangerous and inflammatory, particularly as agents face rising assaults from activist mobs. Those warnings now appear to be prescient. I point out again that more than 70% of those who have so far been detained for deportation have criminal records either in their country of origin or here in this country. So the idea that U.S. citizens are being grabbed and kidnapped off the streets, arrested to be deported, is simply false. In recent weeks, ICE officers in Minneapolis have been harassed, beaten, and attacked. In one incident that the president highlighted, a Department of Homeland Security officer reportedly had part of his finger bitten off during an altercation with radical activists. Despite this violence, Walz continues to demand that President Trump pull all federal agents out of Minnesota, even though the Department of Homeland Security says the operations are focused primarily on legal immigrants, as I said it before, with criminal records. Walz's remarks also coincided with a viral online claim accusing ICE of using a 5-year-old child as bait. The Department of Homeland Security swiftly debunked the allegations as fake news, stating the child had been abandoned by his father and the alleged mother had refused custody. Officers ensured the child was fed, comforted, and placed safely. Walz's reckless comparisons trivialize the horrors of the Holocaust. They're a form of anti-Semitism. They demonize law enforcement, and they encourage hostility towards federal officers who are simply doing their jobs. Whether it is for this action against law enforcement now, or for allowing billions in Somali fraud to happen on his watch, it's time for Tampon Tim to be locked up. I think he should be charged. I think that there is more than sufficient evidence to do so. Of course, I'm not a lawyer, but today I heard that he reached out to the president and that the president was sending Tom Homan to ascertain the situation in Minneapolis firsthand. Now, I know Tom Homan. He's a good friend of mine. He's a good man. But it sounds to me, and this is speculation, that the president wants a first-hand report. He announced Sunday that border czar Tom Homan was going to Minnesota following weeks of unrest from the coordinated paramilitary communist cells rising up against federal immigration enforcement. I guess I saw it in a Truth Social post on January 26th. The president said Homan would arrive Monday evening, that would be this evening, emphasizing that while Homan was not previously involved in Minnesota operations, he has long-standing relationships with state and federal officers there. President Trump wrote, "Tom is tough but fair and will report directly to me." White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that Homan's mission will extend beyond immigration enforcement. He will oversee ICE operations targeting illegal immigrants, particularly those with criminal records, and coordinate investigations into the massive, systematic welfare fraud emanating from the Somali migrant community, which has resulted now in billions of dollars of tax dollars being stolen through fraudulent entitlement schemes in Minnesota. This announcement comes amid heightened tensions in Minneapolis after Border Patrol agent shot and killed the armed Antifa-aligned activist Alex Pretty after he violently resisted arrest during an encounter with multiple agents. The incident followed the earlier fatal shooting of U.S. citizen Renee Good during a separate enforcement action after Good attempted vehicular homicide against a federal agent. This is kind of like that movie Rashomon, very famous Japanese noir film in which various people see the exact same event, but everyone who's watching sees something different. I've studied the videos of both the Renee Good incident and now the Alex Pretty incident, and in both cases it's very clear to me that Good is clearly trying to run over an ICE agent. And it's very clear from the video I saw that Alex Pretty was reaching for his gun. Liberals continue to deny both. So what are you going to believe, your own eyes or the left-wing media? Democrats have responded by threatening a federal government shutdown unless Republicans strip funding from the Department of Homeland Security, which has been part and parcel of their Hegelian dialectic problem-reaction-solution model all along. President Trump has rejected calls to retreat, arguing the Minnesota operation is critical to restoring order and protecting the taxpayers. President Trump also revealed that Governor Tim Walz called, as I said earlier, requesting cooperation. So perhaps, let's hope, Trump is above all a negotiator and a businessman first, and if he can negotiate a peaceful settlement that carries out the rule of law, I think he will certainly do so. In the face, however, of what is clearly a very well-organized and funded insurrection, as I've said previously, and the president has said himself, he will consider implementing the Insurrection Act of 1807. Now, that is a huge step. It is the only waiver, the only instance in which the President of the United States is allowed to use uniformed military forces on American soil. And it has only been used in time of crisis. President Dwight Eisenhower used it in 1957 when local law enforcement in Arkansas refused to follow directives from the federal government regarding desegregation of the Little Rock schools. President Lyndon Johnson and John F. Kennedy both used it to enforce civil rights enforcement in the South during the 60s. George H.W. Bush used it in the wake of the Rodney King riots. It is a huge decision for the president. I have little doubt that Tom Homan will take care of business. He's certainly not the type to go soft when it comes to detaining and deporting illegals in enforcing the rule of law. But perhaps the president wants to hear the first-hand report from Homan before making this incredibly difficult decision. Meanwhile, federal prosecutors have issued 6 grand jury subpoenas last week to top Minnesota officials, including Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey as part of an investigation into possible obstruction of federal deportation operations. While the subpoenas initially appeared focused on whether inflammatory public statements interfered with immigration enforcement, new reporting suggests the alleged obstruction may go far deeper. Citizen journalist Cam Higbee, who I referred to earlier, released what he describes as bombshell evidence after going undercover inside multiple left-wing activist signal groups operating across Minneapolis. Higbee says the groups exist for one purpose: to track, impede, and obstruct federal immigration agents in real time. According to Higbee, Minneapolis is divided into multiple patrol zones, each with its own individual signal group. Activists allegedly run mobile patrols to hunt for suspected federal vehicles, logging license plates into shared databases of known federal assets. Once identified, often incorrectly, vehicles are broadcast through an all-day dispatch call directing protesters on how to block or harass agents. Higbee reports that participants undergo training for specific roles. In fact, he has released their training manual. They use military-style salute reporting formats and tag operational updates with emojis to indicate assignments. He also released screen recordings showing an active federal vehicle plate database and dispatch calls tracking suspected ICE movements. Even more troubling, Inside Wire and other journalists who are citizens claim a former campaign strategist for Governor Walz, Amanda Kohler, was identified as a key leader within this signal network. Additional materials shared include, as I said, this activist training manual, organizational charts resembling a shadow police force, and coordinated pressure campaigns against individual journalists. Federal subpoenas are not enough, in my opinion. This communist thug operation needs to be broken up. Severe examples need to be made. This type of behavior cannot be allowed in the land of the free. Yes, I'm afraid Senator Joe McCarthy, who was vilified at the time, was right. And it turns out the only mistake was he didn't go far enough in calling out the communist infiltration within our government. But the real question that must be asked is, what did Governor Tim Walz know, and what did he know it? When did he know it? The famous phrase from Watergate. So what did he know not only about this violent insurgency in the streets of Minneapolis, but what does he know about the multi-million-dollar Somalian fraud on the American taxpayers? Those who have already thrown in the towel on the 2026 election make an enormous mistake if they don't think that this NGO nonprofit Somali fraud is not going to spill over into Michigan, Ohio, Oregon, Washington State, and as the president himself has said, both New York and California. But will Republicans stay the course? Do they have the guts to fight this out, or will they go soft? When we come back to the Stone Zone, I'll answer that question.
It's the perfect time to replace that beast in your basement, your old inefficient boiler, with a highly efficient, peerless boiler. Peerless boilers, they're a perfect match for homes, apartments, commercial buildings, you name it. Get the heat and hot water you need efficiently and save big on your energy bill all year long. Learn more about the entire Peerless Boilers family of products, and to find a local installer near you, visit peerlessboilers.com. And remember, my guy Pete Morgan, Peerless Boilers, the world's best built boilers, peerlessboilers.com.